I should have known something would be different the moment I stepped back into that house. The air smelled the same, faintly like cedar wood and lemon cleaner, but something about it felt heavier this time. Maybe it was nostalgia pressing down on me. Or maybe it was the fact that I'd agreed to crash here for one night and pretend I wasn't still nursing feelings I never should have developed in the first place. Mason had invited me, as casually as ever, like we were still 17, and sneaking beers from his dad's garage fridge. "Come stay the night, man," he'd said over the phone. "We'll play some old games, eat garbage, catch up properly." He was visiting home for the weekend, same as me, and the offer was innocent on the surface, friendly, familiar. But Mason's brother Ethan still lived there. That was the part I hadn't told anyone, not even Mason, that it wasn't him who had left a dent in my chest all those years ago. It was Ethan, the older brother who used to ruffle my hair whenever. I passed him in the hallway, the one who drove us to midnight showings in high school and once carried me across a flooded street like it was nothing. The one with the quiet laugh and the unreadable eyes. The one I tried so hard to forget when I left town for college. Now, I was back, and I could hear his voice from the kitchen as soon as I walked through the front door. Deeper than I remembered, still calm, still warm. "Hey," he said when I entered, like no time had passed. He was leaning on the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled up, casually drinking from a chipped mug I remembered from years ago. He looked good. Not in a magazine cover kind of way, but in a lived-in, worn denim, how do you still smell like wood smoke kind of way. I smiled too fast, betraying myself. "Hey, Ethan." Mason came in right after, slapping me on the back with the same chaotic energy he'd always had. "Told you he'd still be here. The guy's basically a houseplant." "Houseplants need light and water," Ethan deadpanned, not looking away from me. I swallowed hard, and suddenly, the house felt much warmer than it had a moment ago. We moved to the living room soon after, all three of us settling into the kind of easy rhythm that old friends and siblings fall into. The TV played some half-watched movie in the background. Mason sprawled across the couch while I took the armchair. Ethan sat on the floor, close enough that his shoulder brushed against my knee every time he shifted. It wasn't on purpose. Probably. But my skin lit up every time it happened. Small talk, laughter, pizza ordered too late. It all felt like comfort food, like slipping into a sweater I hadn't worn in years, except this one still smelled like him. And the worst part? Very small, very stupid part of me hoped that Ethan remembered what I had tried so hard to forget. I met Mason when we were both 14 and trying too hard to act like we weren't terrified of high school. He was all crooked grins and reckless energy, the kind of kid who made teachers sigh and girls giggle. I was quieter, more observant. The kid who always knew where the exits were in a crowded room. Somehow we balanced each other out. By sophomore year we were inseparable. Late-night homework marathons, football games we barely understood, summer jobs we both quit too early, and always in the background was Ethan, 3 years older, quieter, smarter. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. Me included. Back then, I never said anything about the way I noticed him, how I'd go still when he entered a room, how my eyes would find him before I even realized it. It was harmless, I told myself. A phase. He barely even looked at me. Except, sometimes, he did. Remember when you got stung by a bee and convinced yourself you were dying? Mason laughed from the couch, dragging me back into the present. He had one arm slung over his eyes, a slice of cold pizza resting on his stomach. "I was allergic, Mason." "You were not allergic. You were dramatic." Ethan chuckled softly from the floor. "You made me Google symptoms on my phone." "Because I couldn't feel my tongue." "You could. You were just panicking," Ethan replied, glancing up at me with a knowing smirk. "Your tongue was fine. Your pride, maybe not so much." I rolled my eyes, but my stomach flipped. That smirk, that... Look, he remembered. Still a hypochondriac? He teased. Only when you're around, I said, before I could think better of it. The silence that followed was short but charged. Ethan's eyes lingered on mine for a half-second too long, and Mason, thankfully oblivious, groaned. All right, I'm dying. You nerds can reminisce without me. He stood and stretched. I'm heading to bed. You sure? I asked. He shrugged. Long drive tomorrow. You good to sleep in the guest room? I nodded, and then Mason turned to Ethan. Yo, you good with that? Or are you still hoarding the space heater in there? It's not hoarding if no one else uses it, Ethan muttered. I blinked. Wait, there's only one guest room? Mason paused. Oh, right. Mom turned the other one into her yoga studio. Crap. Ethan looked at me. We can share. It's a decent-sized bed. Unless you snore, in which case, I'm kicking you out. Halfway through the night. He said it lightly, like it was no big deal, but something curled in my chest. Sharing a bed. With Ethan. I forced a casual shrug. I don't snore. You? He smiled. Only when I'm comfortable. Whatever that meant. Later, brushing my teeth in the dimly lit bathroom, I caught my own reflection and tried to quiet the storm in my chest. This wasn't a big deal. People shared beds all the time. It didn't mean anything. But when I stepped into the room, his room, technically, the one he hadn't really changed since college, I couldn't ignore the way my heart stuttered. The room smelled like old books and cedar, and one side of the bed was already turned down. He stood by the window, his silhouette lit by the porch light outside. Sorry, it's not fancy, he said without turning around. I'd have offered. The couch. But Mason already claimed that weeks ago. Guy sleeps like a corpse on that thing. It's fine, I said, setting my bag down slowly. This is fine. He finally turned to face me, and for a moment neither of us spoke. I remember you used to always fall asleep first, he said, voice low. Back when Mason and I would stay up arguing about movies. I smiled. I wasn't asleep. I just liked listening. His eyes flicked to mine again, slower this time. Yeah, he said, almost to himself. I remember that too. The bed creaked when I climbed in, too aware of the warm indent where Ethan's body had already been. He was lying on his side, scrolling on his phone, the soft glow lighting up the curve of his cheekbone and the stubble on his jaw. He looked so relaxed, like this was nothing, like we hadn't just crossed a silent line. You good? He asked, glancing over. Yeah, I said too quickly. Totally fine. He smiled faintly and returned to his phone. I slid under the covers, careful to keep to my side, heart pounding like a drum. The mattress shifted as he adjusted his position, his leg brushing against mine for a fleeting second. Neither of us moved after that. We just lay there. The silence stretched. Too long. I could hear the soft click of him locking his screen, the quiet sigh as he shifted onto his back. He was close. I could feel the heat radiating off his skin, even though we weren't touching anymore. I forgot how quiet it gets out here, I said, just to say something. Yeah. I like it, though, he replied. Peaceful, no traffic, just wind and bugs, I laughed softly. You and your bugs. You say that like it's a personality trait. It kind of was, I teased, turning my head to look at him. You were always outside. I remember that summer you built a pond in the backyard. Just for fun. He grinned. Still there, you know. Frogs took it over. There was a comfortable pause, and I let myself look at him longer this time. He was staring at the ceiling, one arm folded behind his head, the other resting on his stomach. His fingers tapped out a slow, rhythmic beat. Hey, he said suddenly, his voice quieter now. Can I ask you something? My breath caught. Sure. Why'd you disappear after senior year? I mean, You and Mason stayed friends, obviously. But you never came around anymore. There it was. I'd prepared for this moment 100 different ways in my head. But now that it was here, now that he was here, inches from me in the dark, I couldn't think of a single good lie. I guess I just got busy, I said lamely. Ethan turned his head. Busy, huh? I met his gaze. It was too dark to see. His eyes clearly, but I could feel them on me. Steady, searching. I didn't mean to disappear, I said softly. It just felt easier, I guess. He didn't respond right away. Then, easier than what? My mouth went dry. Telling you the truth. Admitting I looked for reasons to be near you. That I thought you saw me, even when you weren't supposed to. But I couldn't say any of that. So I just shrugged. Everything. He watched me for another beat, then looked away. Yeah, he said quietly. I get that. The air between us changed after that. Denser. Something unspoken hung there, stretching thin and taut. I turned over, facing away, hoping it would help. It didn't. The blanket shifted again. I felt the brush of his hand. Light, barely there, against my back as he adjusted the covers. Not deliberate, I told myself. Not a thing. Except it lingered just a second longer than necessary. My heart skipped. You cold? He asked, voice rougher now. No, I said, even though I was suddenly shivering. Pause. Then, you sure? I nodded, but I heard him shift closer, felt the weight of his presence just behind me. My skin buzzed like I'd been shocked. This okay? He asked quietly. It was. It wasn't. I didn't know. Yeah, I breathed. It's fine. Then his arm draped across the mattress, not touching me but near. So near. My fingers curled into the sheet. I could smell him. That familiar mix of worn cotton and pine soap. My body ached with how much I wanted to lean back, to feel him against me, to ask for it. But I stayed still. Frozen in the space between maybe and no. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time blurred when you were caught in a moment you couldn't name. Can I ask you something else? Ethan said behind me, his voice quieter than before. Yeah. Back then. Did you have a crush on me? My whole body locked. I didn't move. I couldn't breathe. He waited. Finally, I said, Why are you asking? Because, he murmured, I think I kind of hoped you did. I turned then, slowly, carefully. He was looking at me, face unreadable, but his eyes, God, his eyes were open and soft and real. I wasn't sure, he said, but sometimes you'd look at me like you wanted to say something, and then you'd just disappear. I stared at him, throat thick. I was scared. I know, he said, so gently it almost broke me. Me too. A beat. Two. And then he reached out, his fingers brushing mine in the smallest, most tentative way. I didn't pull back. Instead, I let my pinky hook around his, just enough. For a long time, neither of us said anything. His pinky was still curled around mine, such a small point of contact, and yet my whole body was aware of it. A slow ache unfurled in my chest. I didn't know what this meant, if it meant anything, or if I was just reading into something I'd wanted for too long. But he wasn't pulling away. I turned on my side to face him again, and he mirrored the movement like it was instinct. We were close now, barely a pillow between us. I could feel the heat of his breath brushing my cheek. I thought about you more than I should have, I said quietly. His eyes flicked over my face. When? All the time, I admitted, especially after that summer. I didn't want to feel that way, but I couldn't stop. So I left. I made excuses. I told myself it was better if we weren't around each other because you were scared, he finished, his voice low but steady. Yeah. My voice broke on that word. I was scared I'd screw it up, scared that if you ever knew, you'd hate me, that you'd look at me different. He didn't speak right. Away, and the silence stretched too long again. That same old panic rose in my chest. I was about to say never mind, about to pull back and take it all with me. But then his hand shifted. Tentative. Slow. His fingers brushed my wrist before settling there, his thumb resting right at the bend where my pulse thudded hard beneath. The skin. I never hated you, he said, even when I didn't understand why you stopped showing up. I just missed you. The warmth of his touch traveled up my arm like a slow-burning fuse. I thought you were straight, I whispered. I am. He paused. I mean, I was. I thought I was. I don't know. It's not like I've ever felt this way about anyone else. A beat passed. But with you, he continued, it's always been different. Even back then. I just didn't know what to do with it. You were Mason's friend. You were quiet and funny, and you'd look at me like I mattered, like I wasn't just some jock wasting time before college, and every time I caught you looking, I felt something. He let out a breath, like it cost him to say it. I didn't know if I wanted to kiss you or shake you, because you were messing with my head and you didn't even know it. I laughed, shakily. I knew it. That made him smile. Yeah, I figured. A long moment passed. His thumb moved in a slow, nervous circle against my wrist. I should have said something sooner, I murmured. But I couldn't take the risk. You're saying it now, he said. That counts. He shifted closer. Not a lot, just enough that our knees bumped. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was thick with emotion, a heartbeat louder than either of us wanted to admit. I keep thinking about how it used to be, I whispered. When I'd come over and you'd be there in the kitchen, shirtless and half asleep, and I'd pretend I wasn't looking. Or that time you wrestled me into the pool and held me under for a second longer than necessary, and smiled like you knew exactly what you were doing. I did know, he said quietly. I just didn't let myself think about why. My heart stuttered. Ethan. He reached up, brushing a stray curl from my forehead. His fingers lingered against my temple, soft and warm. You don't have to be scared of me, he said. Not anymore. But what does this mean? I asked, voice trembling. What are we even doing right now? I don't know, he admitted. But I don't want to pretend nothing's here. I don't want to keep lying to myself. My eyes searched his face. So what are you saying? He hesitated, and for the first time, I saw the vulnerability crack through his calm exterior. He looked scared too. I'm saying, I want to try, he said. With you. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. You sure? No, he said, and then added, but I want to be. And that was enough. My hand moved without thinking, resting lightly on his chest. I felt the quick flutter of his heartbeat beneath my palm. He didn't flinch. If anything, he leaned into it. His gaze flicked to my lips, then back up to my eyes. There was a question in that look, and an answer in mine. When he kissed me, it wasn't perfect. It was hesitant and slow, his mouth brushing mine like he wasn't sure if he was allowed. I tilted my head and kissed him back, firmer this time, trying not to shake from how much I felt. His lips were warm and unsure, like he was learning the shape of something he'd only imagined. But the moment our mouths met fully, everything inside me clicked. This was it. This had always been it. His hand came up to cradle the side of my face, gentle and reverent, like he was afraid I'd disappear. I could feel his breath stuttering as we pulled back just slightly, foreheads touching. "I've never kissed a guy before," he murmured. I smiled, heart thudding. "You're doing okay." He huffed a laugh, nerves and wonder tangled in the sound. "This is insane," he said. "I can't believe I'm doing this." I traced a slow line across his chest, with my fingers memorizing the moment. "Believe it. Because I've wanted this for a long time." "I know," he said. "Me too. Even if I didn't admit it." He kissed me again. Deeper this time. More certain. My hand slid to the back of his neck, pulling him close. We kissed, like we'd been holding our breath for years and finally let it out. When we broke apart, the room felt different, like the air had shifted, like we had. "I don't want this to be a one-time thing," I said softly. "Me neither." I searched his face. "Then what now?" Ethan laced his fingers through mine. "Now we stop pretending." I woke up still curled into him. His arm was around me, palm resting just above my hip, and our legs were tangled beneath the blanket like they'd always belonged that way. For a few seconds, I didn't move. I just stared at the soft morning light, bleeding through the curtains, and listened to the even rhythm of Ethan's breathing. We'd fallen asleep like this. After kissing. After saying things I never thought I'd be brave enough to say. And the craziest part? He was still here. I shifted slightly, and his fingers twitched against my side. A low, sleepy groan escaped him as he blinked awake, eyes bleary and confused for half a second before they found mine. And then he smiled, sleepy, crooked, devastatingly soft. "Morning," he mumbled, voice gravelly with sleep. "Hey," I whispered. His arm tightened a little, pulling me in just enough that our foreheads brushed. "Okay, so that wasn't a dream?" "Nope." I grinned. "Unless we're sharing the same weirdly detailed dream." He laughed under his breath, the sound vibrating against my chest. "Damn. Guess I really kissed you, huh?" "You really did." He nudged my nose with his. "Was I terrible?" "You were." I paused, pretending to think. "Passable." He groaned, rolling onto his back dramatically. "Wow. Brutal. One vulnerable moment, and you're already roasting me." I propped myself up on my elbow, looking down at him. "You're cute when you panic." He gave me a mock glare. "I am always cute. Panic or no panic." I bit back a smile and traced a small circle on his bare shoulder. "So, what now?" The humor in his face faded, replaced by something quieter, realer. "I don't know," he admitted. "This is all still new, scary. Yeah, but I don't want to walk away from this. From you." That hit something deep in my chest. I nodded. "Me neither." We lay there in silence for a moment. Not uncomfortable, just full. Like we were both trying to make room for this new version of us. I rested my hand on his chest, felt his heartbeat ticking away under my palm. "People are going to ask questions," he said eventually. "Mason, my parents, everyone. Are you okay with that?" He took a breath. "I don't know, but I'm okay with you." That was everything I needed to hear. "I don't need us to figure it all out right now," I said. "I just want to know we're on the same page." Ethan reached for my hand, threading our fingers together. "We are." We stayed like that for a while, just existing, touching, saying nothing. When he kissed me again, it was slower this time. No urgency, no doubt. Just lips brushing with the kind of softness that said we have time. When we finally got out of bed, well, past noon, he insisted on making me breakfast. I sat on the counter, legs swinging, while he burnt the toast and scrambled the eggs like a man with no culinary training whatsoever. "You're gonna be the worst house husband," I teased. He smirked. Over his shoulder. "Good thing you're in love with my personality and not my cooking." "Oh, in love, huh?" His eyes widened. "I mean, hypothetically. Eventually. Maybe." I laughed, jumping down from the counter and wrapping my arms around his waist. From behind. "Don't panic, Chef. You're fine." He leaned back into me with a grin. "So, you're staying another night, right?" I rested my chin on his shoulder. "Yeah, if that's okay with you." He turned his head just enough to brush his lips against mine. More than okay. And just like that, I wasn't visiting anymore. I was staying. For real this time. A week later, I came back, with a duffel bag, a half-nervous heart, and the key Ethan had pressed into my palm that morning, wrapped in a post-it that said, "You're not a guest anymore." The house felt different this time. Not because anything had changed, really. Same scuffed floorboards, same half-dead succulent on the windowsill, but because now, when Ethan opened the door, he didn't just grin at me like a friend. He pulled me in like something real, something his. He kissed me on the porch without hesitation, one hand on my neck, the other still holding the edge of the door like he'd forgotten everything else. "You came back," he said, forehead resting against mine. "You gave me a key," I murmured. What was I supposed to do, ignore that romantic gesture? He chuckled, tugging me inside and kicking the door shut behind us. "God, you're so annoying." "You love it." Unfortunately, we fell into a rhythm easily. Lazy mornings, with mismatched coffee mugs, evenings curled up on the couch, while he picked movies just to watch me roll my eyes at his terrible taste. The little things started mattering more, like how he always handed me the blanket first, or how I'd find his hoodie mysteriously draped over my chair like it had chosen me. But the best moment came on a rainy Thursday night. We were lying on the couch, my head on his chest, the storm tapping steadily against the windows. The movie playing in the background had been forgotten ages ago. I felt his fingers brush the inside of my wrist, feather-light, like he was memorizing the shape of me. "Hey," he said softly. He shifted a little to look at me. "Can I show you something?" "Depends." "Is it another cursed action movie?" He smiled, then sat up, reaching for something on the coffee table. A small, square photo frame. When he handed it to me, I blinked. It was a photo from the first night I'd stayed. Mason had snapped it just before leaving, me and Ethan sitting on the porch steps, too far apart to seem suspicious, but close enough that I remembered exactly how aware I'd been of the space between us. Now the gap felt like a joke. "You kept this?" I asked, running my thumb along the edge of the frame. "I printed it this week," he said quietly. Felt like, I don't know, the start of something. Us, before we even knew. I stared at it, something warm blooming in my chest. "It's not even a great picture," he laughed. "No, it's not. But I love it anyway." I set it on the shelf behind the couch, next to the lamp. A tiny thing, but it felt permanent, like saying this is our space now. When I turned back to him, he was watching me with that look again. The one I hadn't figured out how to describe, except that every time I caught it, my chest felt too full and too safe all at once. "Whatever this is," he said, threading his fingers with mine, "I want to keep doing it, even if I mess up. Even if it's scary." "You're not doing it alone," I whispered. His thumb brushed over mine, grounding me. "Promise." I squeezed his hand. "Promise." Outside, the rain kept falling, steady, quiet, familiar. Inside, everything was still and warm, the kind of warmth that doesn't ask questions, just waits for you to breathe it in. And as he leaned in to kiss me again, slow, unhurried, certain. I knew this was just the beginning.